Welcome back! My name is ballerscuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1977, and today we're going to talk about Star Wars. Our story begins in 1971. A young filmmaker named George Lucas released a dystopian film named THX 1138 to moderate success. However, George Lucas felt the film's dark tone prevented it from being better received. Being a big fan of the Flash Gordon serials of the 1930s, George Lucas decided to make his next movies more optimistic. United Artists, however, were fans of THX 1138 and offered Lucas a 2-film development deal. The 2 films agreed upon were American Graffiti and an untitled space opera inspired by Flash Gordon. George Lucas tried to buy the rights to Flash Gordon but could not afford them. His original idea was to make a Flash Gordon movie, but Lucas believed that the Flash Gordon serials showed promise, but were not made well. It's hard to disagree. Lucas wrote his script for American Graffiti and turned it into United Artists. The studio passed on the project. As a result, United Artists passed on the space opera as well. Universal Pictures, though, picked up the script for American Graffiti. Lucas spent 2 years working on American Graffiti, releasing it in 1973. American Graffiti proved to be a success, both with critics and audiences. Lucas then turned his attention back to his space opera, which was much more important to Lucas. George Lucas claims that his space opera script was based on the politics of the era, particularly the Vietnam War. In particular, Lucas was interested in thinking historically about how democracies turn into dictatorships. So in January 1973, Lucas started writing. Frustrated with his first efforts, Lucas began to take inspiration from the 1958 film The Hidden Fortress, directed by Akira Kurosawa. Lucas adapted the screenplay to more closely match the Japanese film. Lucas, along with producer Gary Kurtz, turned in the work to Universal Pictures, but Universal Pictures found the film too strange. Lucas turned to Walt Disney Productions, who also turned the film down. 20th Century Fox, however, was willing to fund the project. In February 1975, Lucas was able to turn in his script to 20th Century Fox. The studio granted Lucas a budget of $5 million, almost $24 million in 2020. Lucas would ultimately rewrite this script in full 4 times. Even that 4th rewrite was tweaked before becoming the final pre-production script in March 1976. However, the script was still not fully done, and the script would continue to be edited during filming. But through several struggles, George Lucas was able to start filming Star Wars. Lucas started by trying to get the look of the film just right. In order to get the visual effects the way that he wanted, George Lucas formed his own visual effects company in 1975, Industrial Light and Magic. Coming from an independent filmmaking background, George Lucas insisted on building new sets and props instead of reusing props from previous films. Lucas had a distinct idea of what the film should look like and wanted to make sure the final project matched it. Just like everything else about the project so far, filming proved to be rather difficult, with George Lucas's vision and the cast and crew often differing drastically. Originally scheduled for a Christmas 1976 release, the release had to be postponed to mid-1977. The budget would end up being around $11 million, around $50 million in 2020, instead of the original $5 million budget, mostly due to filming and post-production issues. The film was not anticipated to be a success. Because of this, George Lucas was able to negotiate a deal where he declined his option for a $500,000 directing fee, over $2 million in 2020, in exchange for ownership of the merchandising and sequel rights. However, despite the predictions, Star Wars became an instant success. The critics absolutely loved the film, and so did the audience. Despite only being shown in 43 theaters, the film earned over $2.5 million in its first 6 days, over $10.6 million in 2020. Within 6 months, Star Wars became the highest earning film in North America, earning over $220 million during its initial theatrical run, over $935 million in 2020. This took the title from Jaws. The international release of Star Wars also set the record for box office sales, earning $410 million in total, over $1.7 billion in 2020. Star Wars had become the highest grossing film of all time. The film would go on to be re-released in theaters several times, including 4 times in the next 5 years. Fans could not get enough Star Wars. The stars of the film would become household names almost overnight. The film is responsible for helping to launch the careers of Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher. Of particular note is the excellent and iconic score by John Williams. On top of all that, the film would spawn a lot of merchandise, which would make money for George Lucas personally. The enormous success of Star Wars would reverberate through all media for years to come. Video game designers, television writers, comic book artists, and of course filmmakers would cite Star Wars as an influence on their later works for decades to come. We will of course play several video games based both directly and indirectly on the film. If you have yet to see the film for yourself, I highly recommend watching it. In particular, I would recommend the original version of the film, as that is the one that was the spark that ignited so many fires in so many creators. From a modern perspective, some aspects of the film will appear dated, but the strength of the film will surpass that. Now, it's time we talk about the plot of Star Wars. So if you have not seen Star Wars and do not wish for the plot to be spoiled, now would be the time to stop. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. For those that have stayed, let's talk about Star Wars. Star Wars opens on board a rebel spaceship. These rebels have stolen plans to the Galactic Empire's newest space station, the Death Star. Princess Leia, secretly one of the rebellion's leaders, has the plans on board the rebel spaceship when it is intercepted by an Imperial Star Destroyer, commanded by Darth Vader. Knowing that she will be captured, Leia hides the plans in an astromech droid named R2-D2. R2-D2, along with protocol droid C-3PO, flee in an escape pod to the desert planet Tatooine. There, the 2 droids are captured by Jawa traders while Darth Vader takes Princess Leia prisoner. Those Jawa traders sell the droids to moisture farmers Owen and Beru Lars and their nephew Luke Skywalker. Luke cleans R2-D2, accidentally playing a holographic recording of Princess Leia asking Obi-Wan Kenobi for help. Luke happens to know a Ben Kenobi and is determined to find him to investigate further. The next morning, R2-D2 goes missing, so Luke goes to look for him, leading him to Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi then reveals his past to Luke. Ben is Obi-Wan Kenobi. He used to be a Jedi Knight who were peacekeepers in the Galactic Republic until they were wiped out by the Galactic Empire. Luke learns that Obi-Wan fought alongside Luke's father as a Jedi Knight until Darth Vader, who also used to be a Jedi, turned to the dark side and killed Luke's father. Obi-Wan then gives Luke his father's lightsaber, the weapon of the Jedi. R2-D2 then plays the message from Princess Leia. Leia asks Obi-Wan to take the Death Star plans to her home planet of Alderaan and give them to her father. Obi-Wan asks Luke to come with him and learn the ways of the Force in order to become a Jedi. Luke says no, stating that he needs to stay and help his aunt and uncle. When Luke returns home, though, he finds that Imperial stormtroopers have killed his aunt and uncle and destroyed the farm while searching for R2-D2 and C-3PO. Luke then agrees to travel with Obi-Wan to stop the Empire. So Luke and Obi-Wan travel to a cantina in Mos Eisley, where they hire a smuggler named Han Solo and his co-pilot Chewbacca to take them to Alderaan. Han Solo is stopped by Greedo, a bounty hunter working for Jabba the Hutt. Han owes Jabba the Hutt money. Han shoots Greedo to end the confrontation and takes everyone on board his ship, the Millennium Falcon. Once on board, the Millennium Falcon takes off, leaving Tatooine behind. We then move on board the Death Star. There, Grand Moff Tarkin orders the destruction of the entire planet of Alderaan in front of Princess Leia as a show of force. The Millennium Falcon arrives at the remains of Alderaan and is caught by the Death Star in its tractor beam. Luke finds out that Leia is imprisoned on the Death Star and is scheduled to be executed, so he resolves to save her with Han and Chewbacca's help. Obi-Wan goes to disable the tractor beam. Through a costume change, some failed deception, and a tense time in a trash compactor, our heroes are able to rescue Princess Leia and make it back to where the Millennium Falcon is stored. Obi-Wan saw that the rest of our heroes needed a distraction in order to board the Millennium Falcon. He decides to challenge Darth Vader to a lightsaber duel. Then, seeing that Luke would not escape without him, Obi-Wan sacrifices himself. The Millennium Falcon is able to escape and head to the Rebel base, but a tracking beacon was placed on it, so the Imperials are able to find out the Rebel base is on Yavin 4. At the Rebel base, the schematics of the Death Star are decoded, and it is discovered that it can be destroyed by firing torpedoes into an exhaust port that leads to the reactor that will cause a chain reaction, destroying the entire space station. Luke decides to join the Rebel squadron in a desperate attack on the Death Star. Han, however, collects his reward for Leia's rescue and leaves to repay Jabba the Hutt. The Rebels attack the Death Star, trying to find a way to get torpedoes into the exhaust port. The Death Star's forces retaliate in their TIE fighters, attacking the Rebels in their X-Wings. Luke, along with his childhood friend Biggs and fellow Rebel Wedge, fly into a trench to get a shot at the exhaust port. But they are followed by TIE fighters led by Darth Vader. The Millennium Falcon returns, attacking the TIE fighters and clearing a path for Luke's squadron to the exhaust port. Vader gets sent off into space. Luke, guided by the spirit of Obi-Wan, turns off his targeting computer. He uses the power of the Force to push the torpedoes into the exhaust port. The Death Star explodes, killing everyone on board. The Rebels celebrate at the base, with Princess Leia awarding Luke and Han medals for their heroism. And that is Star Wars, the film that captured an entire generation's imagination and brought science fiction back to the mainstream. The film opened up a new universe that would be filled throughout the years with characters, planets, and stories. The names, designs, and ideas presented in Star Wars would be highly influential not only in video games, but in movies and television as well. I cannot recommend watching this film enough. We will continue to refer to it in our videos time and time again. We will, of course, return to the Star Wars universe in later videos. After all, George Lucas has to make money on the merchandise and the sequels. My name is ballerscuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video, where we will talk about a particular computer company.